Hi, it's Michael Kerr here, presenting Small Business Banter. Welcome into this very special edition of Small Business Banter Community Radio and Podcast. We're going to be running a 4-episode series on cooperatives, and the series is brought to you by the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals. Melina Morrison from the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals. Over to you.
Thanks, Michael. And we are just thrilled to be sponsoring this 4-episode series because co-ops, as you know, are really important. They're especially important to small business owners that need to come together to collaborate, to get more of the supply chain or to export or scale and all of the other things that we need to do with other people. So in the 4 episodes, we'll be hearing interviews that you've done, Michael, with people behind 4 new cooperatives. And you're digging down on why and how they came about in the first place, why they chose the co-op model, and the difference the co-op structure is making in their business and to their community, of course, because it's all about people before profits. So if you are a current or prospective cooperative and you'd like to learn more about how they run, I really encourage you to listen in and get inspired and learn from others who are actually doing it right now. You can listen to this episode or any of the others by searching up Small Business Banter on your favourite podcast app.
Welcome into another edition of Small Business Banter Community Radio and Podcast. Today, interviewing Darrin Johnson from Kudos Services, and this is the second interview in the series that the Small Business Banter is undertaking with the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, bccm.coop. So this series is interviewing current cooperatives and mutuals and distilling from them what's involved in running their business as a cooperative or a mutual, and I guess actively educating and broadening the understanding of what it's like to run a cooperative or mutual and why others should consider it. So thanks very much, Darrin, for taking the time to come in and chat today on Small Business Banter.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're over in Adelaide?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're the Chief Executive Officer of Kudos Services. Why don't we start with a description of what the business is, and then we'll take it from there as to why that business operating as a cooperative, is the right way for you to run the business.
Sure. So Kudos Services is a disability agency. So we support around about 6,500 children and young people living with a disability to have an independent life. So our specialty is really children and youth. So we would say, 0 to 25. We don't stop serving people at a certain age, but that just tends to be our specialty. And our expertise is really in the sort of more complex end of disability. So people that tend to have multiple issues, I guess, in their life, and we specialise in supporting them and helping them to be as independent as they can be.
What's the history of Kudos Services as it's an employee? What you tell me what the strict definition of your operating model is and how it came about?
Yeah, sure. So today we're structured as a non-distributing employee-owned not-for-profit mutual, which is a bit of a mouthful.
Wow.
But basically it means...
That's an acronym and a half.
Yeah, it is. But basically it means the staff, or what we call members, who are our staff, own the business, but they don't take a financial dividend out of the business. It's still a not-for-profit, but the staff themselves have a lot of say in the directions that we go in and how we choose to operate.
Okay, so I'll come back to something more along the lines of how and why the employees want that model. But how did Kudos was formed in its current form in 2018, I think it was, but it, as a business, had existed prior to that?
Not as an independent business. So basically, the heritage of Kudos is as a government department. So prior to the NDIS coming in, which of course most of your listeners will know of, the disability funding sat within state governments rather than federal government. And so we were, the heritage of us was a group of people that were a government department. We're part of what was in Adelaide called Child and Youth Health. And we were the disability service arm of that. And as the disability funding moved to a national model, the state government really didn't feel that they could offer services anymore directly. And so we got to this point of saying, well, we were a highly specialised service for complex children and young people that was supported by government at a state level, but under the new model, we just didn't really fit. And so the government initially looked at, would someone buy the service or take it on as a commercial offering, and that didn't really work. Nobody was interested in doing that. And so they ran into this dilemma of, well, who's going to provide the services to these complex case children and young people under this new model? And the answer was to spin it off as a service owned by the staff. And that, as you said, was in 2018. And so around 90 people left the government department and formed Kudos 4 years ago now.
Wow. So it's fascinating on a couple of levels. One is that, the state government acknowledged that they weren't going to be able to deliver. How actively did they try to, in inverted commas, sell off the business? Was it a
look? There was they basically met with the major parties in South Australia that was sort of the size and capability to run that service, and there was various levels of interest. But I think the thing about specialising in complex clients is the NDIS model doesn't pay any different whether you're dealing with a complex case or a simple case. It's the same hourly rate. So there wasn't a lot of commercial interest in being the complex specialty, and it really needed to sit with not-for-profits. And the challenge, I guess, for not-for-profits is trying to take on 90 people in one big mouthful tends to be a big payroll and a bit scary. So there was interest, but it didn't really get a lot of traction because the commercial viability was very uncertain. And of course, we're talking about a time where everybody was uncertain how this system was going to work. So most of these businesses were unsure about their own business models, let alone considering taking on 90 odd people and a whole heap of complex clients at the same time.
Wow. So did a lot of the employees at that time, are they still with Kudos now?
Look, obviously there's general turnover, and we do, and some people have stayed and some people have left, but it has been a popular outcome. Some people have returned to government into different roles over time, but largely we still have a really strong cohort of those original people that are still with the business. So we often joke that, we're 4 years old, but we've got staff that have worked for us for 20 years, which it sounds strange, but it kind of is the way it's worked. The business is new, but the heritage of it has a long background.
Right. So there were some entrepreneurs or very committed staff who were the founding members of the new organisation? Is that how, like, to get the cooperative employee? I can't remember the acronym for your long, description of the business, but it's essentially employee-owned cooperative. So there must have been a few key employees that rallied to get the cooperative off the ground?
So look, at the time, the NDIA were instrumental, which is the agency behind the NDIS, of course. They were instrumental in this because they could see that we provided a critical service. The government department in SA was actually initially a trial site for the NDIS in South Australia. And so we had quite a bit of experience. And the real concern from the NDIA is all that experience would just be dispersed if we If we sort of see services, all those clients and those people would have just drifted into multiple different organisations, and that real sort of our hardcore experience would be lost. And the agency was really concerned about that. So there was always this intention to try and find a way to keep this group of people together and operating as a business.
Yeah. So is it fair to say that the commitment of a core group of people to continuing to deliver that service was paramount? So maybe at both at government support level, but also at employee, the employees that actually do, deliver the services. Was that a real central point of focus that we can't stop delivering such a vital service?
I think that was definitely critical to the success of it. It was always clear that there were a committed bunch of individuals that really wanted to work in this space, and that made the concept of a mutual, which at the time none of the staff involved had heard of that sort of concept really, but it gave them the confidence that they could take that risk, because in the end it was a choice. I mean, they given that they were in public service, they had an option to be redistributed. They could have stayed in public service, and they would have ended up shifting into aged care or other areas where their skills were required. But they could see that there was a possibility here, and took the brave step of really electing to leave the security of public service and move to what at the time was regarded as a pretty risky move. A new sort of concept, first in Australia as a public service spun-off mutual. So it was a brave step, but they had that committed group of people that had worked together for some time and were confident that they could make this work.
Yeah, look, it seems to be at the core of a lot of businesses, whether they're for profit, family, whatever. That there's a core group of people with a focus on on delivering something that's very close to them. So as employees, it must have been a very big step. They're going into an organisational structure that isn't about profit. It's about how do you think they saw the benefits for them as employees going from a safe, secure role in government organisation to being a founding employee member of a cooperative and possibly an uncertain future? How do you think they thought about it as employees?
Look, it's a really good question. It was a very difficult and stressful time for them. I mean, public service is a very secure and safe employment background, and they all knew that taking this leap, it may or may not work. There was a lot of belief and there was a lot of faith that it could work, but there was never any guarantee. And in the end, they all faced that individual choice to decide, do they want to pursue this as an exciting new option to try something different, or stay with the safety of public service? And so, in many ways, I'm very grateful that original group of people were all willing to take that chance. But I think what they could see was that they provided such an essential service that really was important to so many people, and they just couldn't step away from that. So it was that passion for their clients and for their families that they serve that really made them be prepared to take that chance. And I guess we're constantly grateful for them for having done that.
Yeah, for sure. And on today's edition of Small Business Banter Community Radio and Podcast, as part of the series on cooperatives and mutuals sponsored by Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, we're talking with Darrin Johnson, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Kudos Services. Darrin, that brave step by those employees into the unknown that we just talked about, what practical support were they able to access to help them through that? The incredibly brave step to do that, but obviously there's a core of people that were very committed to continuing to deliver the service. What was their practical support? How did they progress through confidently this decision?
Yeah,
who helped them?
So the NDIA and the state government fairly quickly in exploring the idea of this, once the idea of a mutual had sort of come to mind, consulted with the BCCM, and the BCCM were instrumental in the setup of Kudos. So they provided some, I suppose, consulting type support. They helped create an initial founding board. They went and took some of those members over to the UK to do a study tour, because employee-owned mutuals operating in the disability sector are more common in the UK. So they went and visited some similar models, and were able to bring back that knowledge and experience. And in addition, at the time, we had a thinker in residence in South Australia, which is a government program, and a gentleman had been here only a year or so before, who was a gentleman called Dr. Guy Turnbull, and he was a man who had established mutuals running in the disability sector in the UK, and so his experience was also instrumental in the state government believing that this could work as a model. So the BCCM were very, very important in that. They helped form our initial constitution, our legal structure, our governance structure. They were very supportive, and they also ran education sessions for the staff to consider about making this move.
Some of the education, did it cover this straddling the role of being a very good employee and also an owner, and it's in this case, you don't get a share of the profits. I assume that the profits that are made go back into kind of delivering more and better services. But straddling the responsibilities of being a good employee and an owner, how was that? Some of the training.
Yeah, look, I think that was one of the things that was important, but really was hard for the members to really appreciate until the move actually occurred. And so it's been a real ongoing learning journey around what that actually means for people. I think, and I think what it meant for individuals is all different. I think some people thought it would mean workplace democracy where every decision is voted on by members, etc. But the reality is that doesn't work either, because we're a typical business. We've got to be agile and we've got to make decisions. But over time, it's really become a lot more obvious as to how they have a role and a say, and in particular around how they exercise their right as an owner to appoint the board, which is a critical part of being an owner, is they appoint the board, and also to hold myself and the management team accountable for how we manage the business.
Okay, yeah, but as you say, it's a big step, and it wasn't straddled straight away. It's an ongoing thing. I mean, one of the things we want to, you just pointed to it quite correctly, that you're running a business. And this series is all about encouraging more communities or groups of people to consider cooperatives or mutuals as an ownership model for vital businesses in that community. And yesterday, or in the first episode of this series, I spoke to Galactic IT out of Perth, who's repairs electronic equipment and for labs over there. And just recently there was a great article about the Sea Lake Hotel, which is now cooperatively owned because the owner of the pub there had enough. They tried to sell it, couldn't, so the community was faced with this choice of, do we want a pub or not? And if we want one, we have to go and do it ourselves. So this whole series is about saying it is possible to have a different ownership model to ensure the ongoing viability of businesses, but it means stepping up as members or employees, and so that we want to make sure that organisations, communities considering it know that there's lots of support. BCCM's a fantastic place to start, but I guess you're saying it's you are running a business, and it won't all sort of be neatly tied up so that you can operate straight away as a fully functioning cooperative tomorrow. You'll need to invest in ongoing training and education, and I guess your role as a CEO is a tip of the hat to that. At some point, the business, aside from the member owners or employee owners, needs professional management as well.
Yeah, correct. I think it's one of those important recognition pieces that the members need to go through, and it isn't a bit of an evolution for them. But our model's relatively clear that the members appoint the board appoints the CEO, and the CEO appoints the management team. And management team has to be able to manage. And where the members have a voice is that they get to be involved in that process, and they also get to hold the management team to account for that process. And it's really probably the only business model I can think of that truly allows employees to do that. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited by the model, particularly for, say, disability care or social services or aged care, is the model creates what I call a DNA level accountability to the team. So, we have values and statements that we operate to. And if I was to, try and direct the team away from those, or just to make, pure commercial decisions, the team gets to say no. They get to say, no, sorry, that's not what we signed up to. That's not what we're about. And there's a structure in place for the staff to, in effect, dismiss my role. They have that capability in our governance structure. They can call a meeting of the board, and they can, in essence, say to the board, this person isn't managing this business the way we think it should be managed. You need to take some action, and if you're not prepared to take some action, we'll put a new board in that will. That just creates an accountability that's just two ways. So whilst I've got to run the business, and the staff on a day-to-day basis need to respect management and accept work instructions and so on, at the same time, there's a dual accountability there that they get to say, you're not delivering on what this promise is, and we're going to make a change. Yeah,
as you hinted at, it's not about everyone having a say on everything. There's the good employees need to be the setup needs to support them continuing to be very good employees first and foremost, even if they are a founding employee owner or member. And then, as you say, then you have a board who sets strategy and direction and appoints a CEO and the CEO is accountable. So it's very possible to to alleviate any sense that a worker-owned, employee-owned cooperative is a mix of things. This governance structure outline kind of makes that very clear, doesn't it? It's who does what, and who should continue to be an employee, who should continue to set policy or strategy.
Yeah, correct. So I guess for our members sort of living the experience day to day, it just feels like a workplace that I guess really appreciates them and respects them, but it gets on with doing its job. So there's probably no doubt that we do take consultation with our staff probably a little bit more seriously than some businesses do. Some businesses do that really well and others less so. And we're certainly not very hierarchical because that sort of doesn't work in this model as well. But given the area that we operate in, there's a really strong natural fit to that. Our staff are all highly qualified, very professional people who want to be able to have a say, and this structure gives them a vehicle to be able to do that, but also allows them to also just get on with their job too, and know that there is a management structure in there that will facilitate that for them. Yeah, and they are expert, and it's a critically important service to keep up and running. That's why it was. It's why it was there in the first place, and why it ended up in this, 2018 as Kudos Services. So, to get employee commitment and engagement and effectiveness is so paramount for every organisation, and incredible job. So, day to day, does it have any impact that, as a business, that you're an employee-owned cooperative from an external perspective with clients, with
with suppliers, funders?
Look, I think what our external clients, etc., will experience is just a really strong commitment to best practice. We still deliver most of our services in community, which is a rare model in the disability sector now. It tends to be moving towards, people establishing clinics and people come in to see a therapist in a clinic. But we sort of buck that trend.
When you say in community, that means, you go out.
Yeah, so we see our children and young people in their homes, at their school, in their workplace, just in their normal what we call natural environment. Yeah. So whether they're seeing a speech pathologist or an occupational therapist or a psychologist or a physio, or it doesn't really matter what services we're providing, we're actually out there doing it in their community, not through a clinic structure. And so that's probably the main thing our external clients see, is that we just deliver our services in a different model because we're not bound by the commercial sort of focus that others tend to be bound by. So, one of the things we've been able to do in South Australia is we've started to return services to regional parts of South Australia. Whereas there's been, generally speaking, commercially, it's not overly viable. And so most of the providers have sort of pulled out, whereas we're going the opposite way. We're starting to start services up in the regional area because our staff want to do that. They want to support people in the regions. And when you've got the will of the staff behind you, you can find a way to make it work. So I think what our clients see is just that we just operate a little bit differently, a little bit more compassionately, and just slightly different to our commercial competitors, shall we say. Yeah,
well, as soon as you have that rent overhead and you want to use it, and so I can see why this is, you're, as an organisation, you're embedding yourself in the community. I mean, and you're going to them, and as opposed to saying, well, here's our opening hours, and not being critical, but I think it's one of the, when I think about what a cooperative or a mutual is or could be, that there's in your case, it's not for profit. So you want to be financially viable, but you want to use the surplus to create, to employ more people or do whatever, you do, to grow the business and deliver more services. But it's also this, more direct connection with a community, and whether it's a regional or a metro community, I imagine it'd be quite visible for that model of seeing clients where they're in their natural environment, as a really personalised, caring kind of service that maybe even sets you apart from your competitors just on that level.
I think so, and I think it's only deliverable with the support of the staff to make that work. Right. So, as an organisation, we've actually deliberately considered how we want to deliver services, and we've deliberately considered the types of clients that we want to support. And what was really clear from the members was the commitment to work with complex children and complex families, which is not the most commercially viable sector of the market. The way the NDIS works, the hourly rate is paid the same, whether you're dealing with a complex case or not. And so to commit to that section of the market really takes the staff and the owners of the business to say, no, this is where we want to play. This is what we like doing. This is what we're good at. This is where we can make a substantial difference. And the team have sort of deliberately thought that through. It's not been a kind of coincidence. It's at times we've actually deliberately sat there and gone, is this the right model? And the team have consistently said, this is what we want to deliver. So those are very conscious choices. A year or so ago now, we sat down and wrote another 3-year plan. And the first sort of line of that is to say that we're an organisation that embraces complexity. We like doing the challenging stuff. And I think that gives a lot of job satisfaction to people that work in this space. I think one of the frustrations of working in the more commercial orientated area is that they, for dollars and cents reasons, often can't deliver best practice. They often can't deliver the services the way they would like to deliver them, whereas we can sort of facilitate that by making that commitment to it. And look, it also helps that we were structured under the NDIS, so we're also incredibly lean. We've deliberately structured ourselves that we don't have a lot of administration people. We don't have a lot of back office. We outsource that sort of services when we need it, and we keep ourselves sort of very lean and agile and focused on actually delivering the services, not creating an accounts department or a finance team, etc. We just bring that in when we need it, and in the meantime, we just focus on delivering the services to the clients.
Yeah, which is, as you say, you use all that management terminology of agile and innovation and, and focusing on the core service. But, again, to link it back to a cooperative and an employee-owned cooperative, it's a really outstanding example of where, the employees can direct through the governance process what the organisation stands for and who, the kind of work it will do. It's really powerful, and I that's why cooperatives and mutuals, beyond the obvious financial things, you can set an agenda. You can do things differently.
I think it is a very powerful model, and we're very keen for others to think about it, particularly in the disability and aged care spaces, which is sort of the areas that we know well, because we have seen over the years some difficult stories, and I think all your listeners would be aware of the Royal Commission into Aged Care and Disability, and it's been uncovering at times some pretty horrific things. And sort of my thoughts on that are that I don't think any of those organisations, even ones that have been involved in situations that have resulted in even a death of a person, I don't think largely they set out that. I don't think anyone in their management plan said we're going to treat people to the point that they may be at risk. I think what happens is the commercial pressures of trying to operate a business means that over time, the management team does a cut here and a cut here and a cut here and a shortcut there. And before you know it, you've drifted a long way away from where you should be. And I think one of the things in an employee-owned mutual is because the owners are invested in the business and they are the people delivering the services, they get to say no. They get to say, hang on, that's not right, and we're not going to do that. And there's not too many models that really allow that. I recently was talking to someone in government, and they're saying, well, yeah, but you're not much different to a not-for-profit, surely. And I'm like, well, no, we're actually very different to a traditional not-for-profit. As those businesses get larger, even as a not-for-profit, management makes the decisions and the staff have to follow them. Whereas we create a model where the staff can go, hang on, that's not right. I'm not doing that. That's not good for my client. I'm not making that decision. And that's really the truly unique thing compared to not-for-profits or other businesses in our sector is the staff's ability to say, no, that's not right. I'm not doing that.
Well, yeah, it could be considered like one-way traffic. The example you were referring to there is, no one sets out to do the wrong thing, but management makes a cut. Management makes a cut. Makes it harder for employees. Employees get less aren't as connected with the purpose of the organisation. Maybe aren't as engaged with what they do because it can feel a bit overwhelming that they don't have a say. So again, it loops back to the model you've got, and I agree entirely that it's very different to a not-for-profit and a for-profit, because of that level of influence and that an employee in an organisation like yours can have if they're conscious and active.
Yeah, correct. And they really do feel connected to the business, and that the business is theirs. And that does just create a whole different perspective in terms of getting up and going to work each day. In knowing that you're actually a part of something, you're actually part of building something, not just a cog in the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah. So, just a slight change of direction, Darrin. You're the CEO. You've had a long, wide experience in running businesses, not for profits. You've been, in other organisations as well. What are your main challenges day to day? And you've got a pretty substantial and highly qualified board. How do they help you and the team of employees?
Yeah, so I guess for us, we're still actually quite new. So we have that strange balance of having a long heritage, but we're still actually a startup. So whilst the staff came out of government, they were really operational people. We didn't have they came out, but we didn't have an IT system. We didn't have offices. We didn't have HR. We didn't have all the systems that businesses need to survive. So for the last couple of years, it's really been an establishment process, really, of getting all those things in place, finding our footing. This year, we've just turned our first surplus. Not surprisingly, as a startup, you tend to struggle to pay the bills initially, and you've got to attract clients. And I guess unusually, we started off with 90 people, so we didn't start up with a couple of us. It was a pretty big payroll straight away. So really, the last couple of years have been about establishing that. And what's really exciting for us now is that we've got to that point. So we're up to about 160 members now, and we've really just sort of found our footing. We're growing, very, very quickly. My biggest problem at the moment is trying to manage that growth, is that we don't have a lot of capital behind us being a startup. So we can't just go, all right, we're going to employ 30 more people today. But I could actually do that. I've got enough demand to do that. But it's a case of actually slowly and having the patience to say, right, we've got a bit of a surplus behind us. Now we'll reinvest it in the business.
Right. And a lot of that is in staff. Is that the investment?
Yeah, primarily. I mean, if people, a lot of people haven't worked in disability or may not sort of, really understand what it's like, but it's not that different to being a law firm or an accounting firm. We earn money off the time that our staff spend with clients. So I think when we actually look at our cost structure, about 95% of what we spend is wages on staff. We don't actually have to spend a lot else. We really are a people-orientated business. There's a small amount of equipment. We need some cars. We need an office to base ourselves out of. But in essence, the growth for us is in people. When we've got more clients, we need to just attract some more therapists that sort of match that demand.
Yeah, so you're always matching, the client revenue and largely the cost of the investment in people, wages. I mean, it's the profile of just so many small businesses across the country, and probably large businesses as well, for that matter. And so the upside in a lot of businesses, irrespective of their operating model, whether it's not for profit or for profit or social enterprise or whatever it is in getting more out of staff, and that's not in a like a sucking the life out of them. It's engagement and it's effectiveness, and so the model you talk about here is is high on its capacity to engage staff, and it's proving out with good growth, excellent growth for you.
Yeah, agree. And I guess one of the challenges of us being a specialist in complexity too is we can't just go back to the graduate pathway. I mean, we can take us on a certain amount of graduates, and we have a graduate program that we run, and we take a number of graduates each year, but we actually need to be attracting experienced, qualified people, because we're dealing with more complex end of our clients. And so internally, we sort of talk about having a 1-in-4 ratio where for every graduate or fairly new staff member we may have, we need to have 3 people around them that are considerably more experienced to be able to support them to engage with our types of clients and to be able to support our families. It's been an interesting process. So that often means attracting people to leave other businesses and to come and join us because we need people that have actually got a bit of experience behind them, as well as bringing on a pipeline of graduates that we can sort of shape as well.
Yeah, getting that blend or that balance right.
Yeah, correct. Particularly because of the focus on working in the more complex end. We need to have a group of highly experienced practitioners. So one of the things that we offer, as well as having say a management structure where everyone will belong to a team, then they'll have a team leader and then a manager. We also have what we call clinical leadership. So we've got 6 roles within our team, which are experts in actually the various fields that we operate in. So clinical lead psychologists, clinical lead physio, et cetera, so that the staff not only can talk to their team leader and their management team, but if they're dealing with a complex situation, they can actually go and talk to an expert in their developmental field, because the two things aren't always the same. The team leaders and managers can't be an absolute expert in 6 or 7 different allied health professions.
Yeah, no, look, and it makes so much sense, as an organisation to build that IP, for want of a better term, and to share it around, and because that's a really effective way for the organisation to kind of deliver its services well across a fairly complex set of services, and the client base is quite challenged in a lot of cases by the sounds. I want to get your sense of, for a cooperative or a thinking about being a cooperative listener, what would your advice be to them to go about getting a cooperative off the ground? What are the things that you would point them towards to go through what they need to go through to get a cooperative off the ground for whatever their business is and for whatever their reasons are?
Yeah, look, I think the key thing, engaging the BCCM is important. That is the body in Australia that really has a depth of knowledge in how to structure these organisations, whether you're looking at a mutual that's owned by suppliers, such as a lot of the agricultural ones, or employee-owned like we are, or customer-owned like some of the credit unions and other groups. There's a wealth of information within the BCCM, and they have been instrumental in helping us to establish. I still engage with them very regularly to and stay up to date with what's happening and to get their advice and support as we develop. And I think the other thing too is just having a real clear sense of the purpose that you want to achieve in creating a cooperative. Because if you can hold true to that purpose, it will motivate people to work through a more unusual model, which these businesses are. They're not the standard. And I think it needs to have that sort of underlying purpose behind it to have people to take that risk and take this step, I think. And most cooperatives achieve things that your average commercial business doesn't achieve. So there needs to be that sort of underpinning reason as to why you would go down this pathway.
Yeah, that's a real magnet for certainly employees, probably a good board, and probably clients.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly in the area we operate in, allied health in particular is regarded as a very thin market for employing people. And there's lots of businesses in Adelaide that will say, they've had roles open for months and months and months and can't get people to come across to them. We haven't found that. So we've brought on about 50 to 60 people in the last 12 months. And in a very
it's against the tide, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what we're finding is people are really attracted by this idea. This is a different concept of work. It's something that people are really excited by, and are willing to potentially make a shift to achieve. So I guess that's another hidden benefit, I suppose, is that in a difficult recruitment environment, these different structures are really attractive to people that want to try something a little bit different.
Yeah, in all the work I do, I deal with a lot of small business owners, and therefore, you're privy to all of their personal and their staff's opportunities, issues, challenges, and this thing of purpose, this concept of purpose is so incredibly powerful, and it's okay. So in some cases, purpose can be profit. There are organisations that function effectively, do good things, but there's so many other small business owners and employees and communities that care more than just about profit. And in some cases, they desperately need to look past profit to, got to be viable, but to just renew ongoing delivery of a key service, whether it's health or whether it's having a pub in town or whether it's whatever it might be. So it keeps ringing true for me that have a clear purpose, as you said, and it kind of it sort of everything else what BCCM could provide in terms of setting up a governance structure and an operating structure. All of that sort of fits nicely when you're clear about what you stand for, and it flows effectively through employees and the board. And
yeah, I agree. And we're structured as a not-for-profit, which is the choice that we've made. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a for-profit mutual, because in the end, where that profit is distributed is to a much more balanced and I guess democratic sort of way. So we are a not-for-profit, but if we were a for-profit, then the mutual structure would mean that all of our staff would get an equal share in the benefits. We operate on a one-person, one-vote model, which is how cooperatives work. So, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the receptionist, you end up with an equal say or an equal share. So in a for-profit model, that would just simply mean that the wealth of the business is distributed amongst all of the owners equally, and that's a great and exciting idea as well. So people don't need to consider this as just a model for not-for-profits. It's a fantastic model for a business that does need to make profit, that wants to actually share that equally with the staff or their customers or their suppliers, depending on which way they're structured.
Yeah. Horses for courses.
Yeah, exactly.
Darrin, I think that's a pretty good note to end on. That was it really thoroughly enjoyed the discussion and your take on your business and the model of mutuals and cooperatives and employee owned. Been really insightful. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you and the employees and board at Kudos Services all the very best.
Yeah, thank you. We're having a good time. We're really enjoying it. It's exciting. It's different, and I just would encourage your listeners to give it some serious thought. It is an alternative model that does require a level of risk, but the rewards are there if you can make that journey.
And plenty of support, as you've rightly said, along the way. So, yeah, be brave, and if it's important, take that step.
Correct. Yeah, and as I said, there is plenty of support, and there's a growing movement, I think, coming, that this is a really viable and different way to structure workplaces in the future.
Yes, it just feels like it is, again, the time, for cooperatives and mutuals. So, yeah, power on. Thank you very much, Darrin Johnson.
Thanks, Michael. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, what a great conversation. And thanks for listening in to this episode, which is part of a 4-part series on co-ops brought to you by Michael Kerr at Small Business Banter and the BCCM, the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals. And if you're interested in setting up or running your existing cooperative, we love to help you, and we have lots of tools, information and advisors. You can find everything you need to know about how to contact us on our website, which is bccm.coop. That's co-op or coop. And you can listen to the rest of this interview or search up any of the others on Small Business Banter on your favourite podcast app.